Welcome back. In this video, we're continuing to study 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 by looking at one of the most important phrases in all of Paul's discussion regarding the strong delusion. Paul says that God sends a strong delusion so that truth rejectors may believe the lie. And that phrase matters. Is Paul saying they believe false things in general? Is he saying they become gullible towards many lies? Or is he pointing to a specific climactic end-time falsehood that stands against the truth of God? Paul isn't just talking about people believing random lies or falsehoods. He's describing a definite climactic lie, the lie, that becomes the final object of allegiance for those who refuse the truth. That lie is closely connected with the antichrist, the man of sin, the man of lawlessness, his false signs and wonders, and self-exalting claims to divine status. In 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 verse 11, Paul says God sends a strong delusion so that they may believe what is false, or the lie. And if you haven't seen my video about the strong delusion, I'll put a link on screen now. The Greek wording here is pointed. The phrase Paul uses here in Greek is to pseudei, and it means the lie or the falsehood. And it matters because Paul is not using vague language. He's not trying to say that they believe false things in general. He's using a singular expression with a definite article. To put it simply, Paul isn't just saying they believe lies, he's saying they believe the lie. Now, that doesn't mean the lie must be one short sentence or a simple slogan. It may be bigger than that. It may be an entire false reality, an entire counterfeit system, an entire rival claim to truth. The grammar does point us towards something definite here, and there are many deceptive means, but they converge toward one central falsehood. Paul's language in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 is important. He says the lawless one comes with satanic power, false signs, wonders, and wicked deception. And that's a wide range of deceptive activity. So, yes, there are many deceptions. There are false signs, there are false wonders, there are persuasive displays of power, and there are wicked forms of deception. But all of those things move toward one goal, that people would believe the lie. And that means we should distinguish between the means and the destination. The means are numerous and many. The destination is singular. The lawless one, the antichrist, uses many deceptions to bring people into allegiance to the lie. And that's the key idea. The deception is not random, it's organized, it has direction, it moves people toward a final false object of trust. Paul sets up a sharp contrast between truth and lie. He says people perish because they refuse to love the truth. And then he says God sends the delusion so that they can believe the lie. Then he says they are condemned because they did not believe the truth but took pleasure in unrighteousness. This paints a stark contrast. It's truth versus the lie. It's allegiance to God versus allegiance to the counterfeit. It's receiving the truth versus embracing the falsehood. And in Paul's thought, truth is not just information. Truth is bound up with God, the gospel, right worship, and salvation. So the lie is not merely misinformation. It's a rival, false reality that competes with God's truth and demands misplaced trust. Romans 1 helps us understand what Paul means. In Romans chapter 1, Paul says that humanity suppresses the truth about God. Then he says people exchange the truth about God for the lie and worshiped and served the creature rather than the creator. That's very close to what Paul is describing in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. In Romans 1, the lie is not just bad information, it's an idolatrous exchange. People trade the true God for created things, and they exchange true worship for false worship, and they reject the creator to serve the creature. And that's the pattern that we can trace into 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. In 2 Thessalonians, that same pattern reaches an end-time climax. The lawless one exalts himself, he opposes God, and he takes his seat in the temple of God, proclaiming himself to be God. And that's not just political arrogance, it's a worship inversion. That is, the creature claiming the place of the creator and demanding worship. So the lie is most likely centered on the lawless one's self-deifying claim. Earlier in the chapter, Paul describes the Antichrist as one who exalts himself against every so-called God or object of worship. He takes his seat in the temple of God. He proclaims himself to be God. That gives us the immediate context for the lie. The lie is not merely that the lawless one is impressive, it's not merely that he has power, and it's not merely that his signs and wonders appear convincing. The deeper lie is that he is worthy of divine allegiance. He becomes the concrete embodiment of the counterfeit. He is the visible center of the final deception. So when people believe the lie, they are not simply accepting incorrect doctrine. They are embracing a rival object of worship and allegiance. And they are believing the false claim that the lawless one represents ultimate authority, truth, and divine power. That is why this deception is so serious. We can take a look into the Old Testament for some examples. The Old Testament often describes idolatry as falsehood. The prophets do not treat idols as harmless religious mistakes. They treat them as lies. Isaiah mocks the idol maker who cuts wood, burns part of it for heat, uses it to make and bake bread, and then bows down to the rest as a god. Isaiah says such a person is deceived and cannot ask, "Is there not a lie in my right hand?" Habakkuk calls an idol a teacher of lies. Jeremiah speaks of inherited lies and false worship. But the point here is clear. In the Bible, the lie is often more than just a false statement. The lie becomes a counterfeit religious system. It's a different reality that pulls people away from the living God. So that helps give us context when we read 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. The lie is not merely one wrong idea among many. It's the final idolatrous counterfeit, the final false reality that draws worship, trust, and allegiance away from God. Deuteronomy chapter 13 also helps us understand the same pattern. In Deuteronomy, Israel is warned that a false prophet may perform signs or wonders. The sign may even appear impressive, but if the prophet uses the sign to lead people after other gods, Israel must reject them. That is an important biblical principle. The miracle is not the final test. Allegiance to God is the test. In 2 Thessalonians, the lawless one comes with false signs and wonders, and the signs are not spiritually neutral. They are designed to validate the lie. They make the counterfeit appear credible, they make rebellion look divine, and they make false worship appear justified. So Paul's warning fits the biblical pattern exactly. Impressive signs can become instruments of covenantal seduction. So we can't reduce the lie to a single sentence only. It is centered on the lawless one's self-exalting claim, but it likely includes a whole false reality that supports the claim. The lie includes false signs, false wonders, propaganda from the lawless one and the false prophet. It includes the rejection of God's truth. It includes worship inversion where a creature claims divine status, and it includes a moral rebellion of those who take pleasure in unrighteousness. In this way, the lie is singular at the level of allegiance, but broad at the level of expression. Many deceptions serve one final counterfeit. Many falsehoods prepare people to embrace one great lie. The Greek phrase to pseudei helps clarify this. The word pseudos means lie, falsehood, or untruth. But in 2 Thessalonians 2:11, Paul does not just use the word lie in broader or indefinite way. He uses a form that points to a definite object, the lie. That doesn't solve every question by itself, but it points us in a clear direction. Paul is not primarily describing general gullibility. He is describing a final false object of belief. And because the immediate context is the man of lawlessness, the antichrist, exalting himself and proclaiming himself to be God, the most natural reading and understanding is that the lie is the climactic falsehood of his self-deifying claim. And this connects naturally with Revelation. Revelation describes a final crisis of worship and allegiance. The beast receives worship, the image of the beast becomes a public loyalty test, the mark identifies those who belong to the beast system, buying and selling become tied to visible allegiance. That is the same kind of pattern Paul is describing. The final deception is not just intellectual, it's public, social, economic, religious, and solidified as allegiance. The beast system in Revelation and the Antichrist in 2 Thessalonians are not identical discussions in every detail, but they belong to the same prophetic world. Both point toward a final rebellion where deception becomes worship and falsehood becomes public allegiance system. And this is important because many people think about end-time deception mainly in political terms. But Paul's warning is deeper than politics. The lawless one may have political power, and he may have institutional power, and he may control public life. But the heart of the deception is spiritual. The lie is about worship. It's about who deserves ultimate trust, who defines truth, and who receives allegiance. And that's why Paul says the people under judgment did not love the truth. The crisis is not only that they believed the wrong information, the crisis is that they rejected the true God and embraced the counterfeit. Paul also says they did not believe the truth but had pleasure in unrighteousness. And that means the lie does not win because people are neutral. The lie wins among those who already prefer unrighteousness. That's a sobering point. Deception is not only a problem of the mind, it's a problem of the heart. People believe the lie because the lie fits what they want. It validates rebellion, and it removes accountability, and it makes unrighteousness feel justified. It allows people to reject God while still feeling religiously and morally authorized. That is why the strong delusion is so terrifying. It's not merely confusion imposed on unwilling people, it's judgment upon those who refuse the truth and preferred unrighteousness. And this brings us back to the strong delusion. And again, if you haven't seen the video about that, I'll link it. God sends the delusion so that people believe the lie. That doesn't mean God tricks innocent people. It means God judges truth rejectors by handing them over to the falsehood they've already chosen. They did not love the truth. They preferred unrighteousness. They were already open to deception. So God allows the deception to become effective. The result is that they believe the lie and they are condemned. This is judicial hardening. It's divine judgment through confirmation, and it is God giving people over to the final form of what they've already chosen. So we need to talk about why this matters for the church. This matters because the calling of the church is not merely to identify deception in the abstract. The church must love the truth. That is the contrast Paul gives. Those who perish refuse to love the truth. Therefore, the faithful must receive the truth, love the truth, and endure in the truth. That means the answer to deception is not mere curiosity about prophecy, and it's not only a detailed end times chart. It's not merely watching the news. It's a settled allegiance to Christ. The final crisis will expose what people love. Do they love the truth? Do they love unrighteousness? Do they worship God? Do they embrace the counterfeit? Do they follow Christ? Do they believe the lie? That's the dividing line. So, what is the lie of 2 Thessalonians chapter 2? The lie is the singular, climactic, idolatrous falsehood that stands against the truth of God. It is centered in the lawless one's self-exalting claim to divine status, and it is supported by false signs, wonders, and wicked deception. It is the end-time intensification of an old biblical pattern, exchanging the truth of God for the lie and worshiping the creature rather than the creator. So, yes, there are many lies, and there are many deceptions, and there are many false signs and false claims. But what they do is converge toward one final allegiance, belief in the lie. As always, thank you so much for watching. The full written version of this study with citations and research notes will be linked in the description below. I encourage you to hit the like button on this video and to share it with people that you know. God bless.